We've kind of started. I'm not sure if we've actually started.
No,
we got our usual battle thing at the beginning. And
I was going to give you a riddle. I guess we're going
to. Riddle? What was the riddle, Tom?
Well, it's not really a riddle. It's more like a brain teaser. It's how many calendars would you have to own if you wanted to go through the entirety of your life with having to only change out calendars? So you'd have to have a calendar that satisfies every year where the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday always falls on the right days, and you have to account for leap years. How many calendars would you need?
My dad had a single wall calendar. It took up the entire wall in his old office, but it actually had the combination of all the possible year outcomes. And you would look on the side, and it would give you a year and what calendar number you'd had to be looking at. It was actually really cool.
Well, there you go. So your dad actually had this in real life, whereas
my dad had this in real life, and we're live talking about calendars.
I miss Calendar Man so much.
We'll be here all night.
Oh boy, we're here. Yeah, we're here all night. Tip the server or don't. It's up to you, as long as their service is great. I'm of course Jason. I'm joined this week finally after a little bit of an absence by Tom.
And greetings, everyone. Happy ROCtober week.
And Jay.
Hi, everyone.
Looking at his cell phone. This week we have started our search for our new Metal Lab tech. We may actually be taking on 2. I'm not 100% sure. It's going to take a little bit of time. Those of you I want to thank for who've already put in their submissions. It was a lot of really good submissions. It was really hard for me to kind of sift through some really good talent and some really good voices for it. But we came to our decision on Phase 2. Phase 2 we're going to start next week, so that we're focused on ROCtober this week, and we're going to be talking to you guys later on. Soon enough, there will be some new faces on the show, we promise.
Sweet.
But we got some old faces right now to talk to. And Tom, it's been a while. What you been up to in the world of Heroclix?
In the world of Heroclix, not much. Playtesting where possible in preparation for ROCtober. I know that several of us are going. Obviously, Jason, Jay, myself, our buddy Mike. Not Mike Payne, unfortunately, but Mike White's going. And he and Sean, a friend of ours also locally, have been practicing a bit for that. Largely focused, honestly, on the 400. Just because of the fact that we're all worried about the fact that we won't even hit the finals if we don't do well enough in the 400. And it's anyone's game, man. 400 limited is it's hard to prepare for when you don't know at all what you're going to see. An awful lot to think about. I've been reading an awful lot of the good times that are Majestic's ccg.com or whatever the actual website is. But the Majestic's Heroclix Apex Insiders page has been very helpful. Thank you, everybody who contributes to that. And I've been thinking about Heroclix a lot more than I've been playing it, if I'm being honest. But anyway, it's been fun.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Jay, update. How has your week been?
Local fun tournament on Thursday. Today I canceled 401's event because all of our regulars, which is 2 people, said they were otherwise occupied, so not much there. I finished packing the suitcase with all of the stuff I'm lending out. So much stuff to be given to other people.
I should tell you about things I want to borrow.
I've got a really small violin to play for you somewhere here. Hold on a second.
Just
here it is. Here it is. See it? See it? Right here? Yeah? Yeah? Right there for you, Jay. That small violin.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry,
yeah. I didn't realize how much room, I think 6 neoprene maps will take up.
Yeah.
I think I have a couple rock ones. I'm getting another one because of the Jeopardy Clixed off contest thing. So I'm going to be coming back with more, potentially another one, depending on what happens at the event. So yeah, neoprene maps are a pain, and paper maps are where it's at, apparently.
Yep.
Yeah.
Other than that, I've solidified my 300 team, pending grabbing something to be borrowed from somebody there. And it's been good. Looking forward to those jokers again because that was fun and different.
It's funny, actually, the week leading up to ROCtober is the first time in a long time we got a chance to play Heroclix outside of our practice for the competitive setting, or for a competitive setting for that matter. Saturday, there was a nice Signature Point event at Comic Warehouse. Not too many people showed up. It's that's kind of that dead season right now, just before Christmas. And then after Christmas, people start to show up again for the tournaments. But I got a chance to play Alyosha and Mizir Mala together. It was a crowning moment in my life to have those 2 back together as Alyosha takes Mizir Mala across the board and makes him move fast. I lost a game to Krakoa, though. due to my silliness and forgetting what it does. It was funny, actually. I had it was against a team of the Trinity War Trinity, and I had his Superman with 3 clicks left, and then the Earthquake hit. And I had 1 click left on all my characters except for Mr. Mala, but I had the Brain out on the board. So then the Brain dies, he KOs, which triggers the effect where Mr. Mala takes the damage for the Brain coming back on him. So Mr. Mala takes the damage from the ground, takes the damage from Mr. Mala.
Chain effect.
Chain effect. And then my other 2 characters had 1 click left on them. So basically I wept. But I did pretty well on the other games I played. I had a ton of fun. Who am I kidding? It was great to just grab a barrel of figures and just go. I used things like the Series 1 Rat King.
Oh, yeah.
The TMNT Series 1. The Nickelodeon Donatello. I got a chance to use him. He was actually really, really fun to use. That giant reach, blades, claws things he has. Whew. Whoa, let me tell you, the look on your opponent's face when you roll a 5 damage with a Donatello. Woo.
The look in your face when you roll any Blades Claw's face with a Donatello.
Yeah.
That's my head scratching right there.
Wait, but he has a stick. Oh, but watch the cartoon. Yeah, it was a ton of fun. I got to have some really great times there. As I bring it down before we bring it up, and we talk about this coming weekend. This weekend being, of course, the ROCtober, the Rock World Cup event. Now, last week you heard us talk a lot about the semifinal, a 400-point limited format, how to prepare for that. Tom's going to elaborate on the thesis of his that I presented later on in the discussion. But I do kind of want to take our focus to the constructed environment. Now, the 3 of us, 2 of us have played in. One of us has possibly tested in, but also judged the format of the 300 that we're expecting. It's the 300 modern age, anything goes of part of the event. You need to either qualify for being in the top 50% of the limited modern semifinal, 400-point limited semifinal, or you have 200 points going in, or you've won 2 super qualifiers, or you won a national event, or you've won a regional, or you've won a state or a super qualifier, and you have another 100 rock points that you've acquired, which is the way I'm getting it. So with that said, 300-point modern, we saw it at Canada Cup for the most part. Ourselves, there was also a regional, I believe, or a super qualifier that same weekend, and then there's been a recent super qualifier regional as well. So we kind of have an idea of the format, and 2 names come up a lot, and it's Jakeem Thunder and Unum Mind. So we know these 2 figures exist in this format, and we have to ask ourselves, is it safe going into this 300 modern to not play them? Are there other options? Do you have to be mentally prepared for this? And what kind of expectation are we going to have on how much of that is going to show up? And we talk about it, but let's talk about it some more, I guess.
Right.
The format, the way it looks right now, Tom, is it possible to be comfortable outside of those 2 figures, or is that it? Is that all there is?
Well, of course. I mean, yes. Is it possible? I'm actually going to get semantic on you. I don't know, for the most part, if it's possible to be comfortable at all in the current state of the game. And my thesis kind of goes like this, and I could absolutely be wrong, but I feel like there are more and less certain periods in the state of the metagame of Heroclix. And so a more certain period is a period where we've been in a long time between a change in rules or a change of retirement, where a lot of the same sort of teams are coming up again and again. Maybe a new set drops and introduces a few new elements, but a lot of the persistent stuff that works keeps on working. This kind of happened especially towards the end of the period before the giant retirement of all the Lanterns and the Phoenix Force and all that stuff. We had kind of settled into a spot where we more or less knew what the power pieces were and a lot of the most potent strategies, and they kept kind of coming up in slightly varied form again and again with new pieces that came out. On the other hand, what we have right now is essentially ROCtober is the first really large 300-point modern tournament that we've had since the change in the rules, and the release of the Mighty Thor. I mean, there have been a few. Certainly, Canadian Nationals was one of them, and there have been a couple others, but it hasn't been that much, and it hasn't been that high profile. So it's been hard to really judge how the new rules have impacted upon the evolution of the game, and also hard to fully put our grasp onto just how much the new special objects we've gotten, as well as all the new Colossal Retaliators and all the really good figures that are in Mighty Thor, what kind of impact those might have on the metagame. So those two elements taken together, basically the uncertainty from so many new powerful things from the new set and the uncertainty created by the new rules, create an uncertain atmosphere. And I tend to personally believe that in an uncertain atmosphere, people will gravitate towards things that they can be sure of. When they don't know what's on the other side of the map, then they'll be especially sure of what's on their side of the map. And so you go with known quantities like Jakeem Thunder, like Unum Mind, like swarms of Green Lanterns and lots of free barrier, jokers and variations on Don't Die Tech, stuff like that, stuff that people know and are familiar with, and by and large, safe strategies. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see some one-man armies. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some Uniminds at full points, as crazy as that sounds, because they're really hard to take out. I don't think they'll necessarily do that well, but people tend to like the idea of it's an all-or-nothing approach when they don't have any idea what's going to be on the other side of the board. The Jakeem especially, this is true of. People know how good he is, they know what he does, and so it's easy to fall back upon something that you know well so that you can focus entirely on the unexpected that is across the table. And I think that's the state we're in going into this 300-point modern. Am I wrong? Maybe. What do you guys think?
Jay?
I think as far as the new rules go, it basically... I mean, Jason and I have talked about this a bunch. I think it basically comes down to whatever was good is just better. Like ID cards, which were already good, now better. Everything that we thought was going to become worse, like Retaliator Call-In or Jean Grey Call-In, all that stuff still exists and is even better. As one huge but important example. But as far as comfortableness, I think... at any time you're not playing the most optimal known strategy, that's going to cause some level of percentages of not doing as well, unless you can hard counter these things, which I don't really think there is much of, considering the Unum Mind has the Power Cosmic and the Protected Pulse Wave First Pick powers. That gets rid of any and all possible hard counters to what he does. But I think we will definitely see some great minds in the game play stuff that's not just straight up the established two. Very confident that we'll see that. I know I'm not doing it. I know that other people that are not good like me will probably do it to be special and unique, like our wonderful Canadians who love being special.
Something about snowflakes.
I don't actually know what Mike White's planning on playing, but I'm 99% sure it's going to be different and surprising, as an example. So, yeah. What's that?
It's weird when you get into this defined format. We kind of know what's there, and then we know that there are things. A lot of these teams are capable of being beaten. Strategy, dice rolling, map awareness in general. It goes a long way towards being able to win these games. And it's one of those things when you look at what won at Canada Cup, I have to give Jason, who won, credit. He did play very well, and I played very poorly after having already beaten him in the Swiss, and that cost me. So this is one of those things right now. It's going to come down to most importantly, smart play, as well as knowledge of your team. It goes a long way to know how your team is going to work, and you have to know what's going to be there. And we can't stress this enough. If you are practicing for this tournament, test your team. If it isn't a Unimind or a Jakeem, or even if it is a Unimind or a Jakeem, practice against them, because you will. I guarantee you will see at least one. If we play 4 or 5 rounds for the Swiss before we get to the single elimination, there's a good solid chance you're going to run into 1 or 2 of them. And I don't think we're going to see on the level of the playing field that we saw at WizKids Worlds, but don't hold me to that, because I'm very capable of being wrong in this case. We might see something on that level, and guys like myself or Jay or possibly Tom, because Tom doesn't play on the curve. You might see us all at the bottom. Who knows? Or we might see us at the top.
You might not even see us in the finals.
Who knows? Well, you'll see me. You'll see me in the tournament final.
That's fair. You may see you in the tournament. You may not see Jay and I at the tournament at all. So
you'll definitely see me on the Thursday behind a computer, on the Friday behind a computer, on the Saturday behind a computer. On the Sunday, I'm going to be playing.
Maybe I will try to be behind the computer then.
Yeah, maybe we'll need the nice, beautiful, sensual tones of Mr. Thomas Kerr behind the microphone.
Spitting venomous bitterness at everybody who gets in when he didn't.
Unfortunately, I won't have Tom for the limited format, which is always fun to discuss or to watch, because this is a new limited format. What's gonna happen, guys? We have no idea, right? It's a whole. What's gonna happen, Morty? I don't know, Morty. What is this? All right, but with that said, the tech that we know exists right now, Unum Mind and Jakeem Thunder, with various amounts of extra powers coming to them in some way, shape, or form. We do know roundtable tech exists. Some crazy Canadian's been trying to ride it for a little while now.
We're hardly alone in that.
Yeah. There's still some lingering new tech. Who knows what Joker Lex might show up in this event. There's a good chance that figure could make its way onto the board, because it's, me and Tom have said it, it's strong. Don't discount it, man.
Don't forget the team of many barriers. I think that there's definitely going to see that. I think that's one of those teams that can just completely stymie your day if you're not at least somewhat designed to think about it. To greater or lesser extent, I think that's especially true also. And I know we're not really talking so much about the 400 point here, but I think 400 point limited, there are lots of options to create teams where there are multiple Green Lanterns and still have lots of points left over to create attackers. And if you are playing any kind of a team like a 400 point Jakeem Thunder, Unum Mind, that is only capable of hitting figures and has no way of dealing with barrier, you could have a very bad day in both of the tournaments.
Well, what answer is there now to all that barrier now that our favorite Cosmic Spider-Man has been... it doesn't even matter in limited, but...
I would say that there are three answers that come to my mind. One is having enough figures on the board that some can destroy the barriers the old-fashioned way and leave room for the others to get through. Another is there are some ID call-ins or just some figures you might want to have on the map that can run right through barrier. I think the U.S. Agent ID card... that's true. U.S. Agent ID card is still a thing, isn't it?
Yep.
Nick Fury set,
was in the same set as the card, so.
Yep. And if you have some way of blasting through and then outwitting barrier, so it's not going to help you on that turn, but it will help you on subsequent ones, so you can try to do it as a bit of a long play. And to be fair, Cosmic Spider-Man can only glow through one line of barrier, but it's not always going to be that easy for someone to always be behind two levels of barrier, right? Like I think that it's not a question of. I think you just have to have multiple different entries from that list, even if they're sort of scant, or you can. I think that smarter people using the teleporter will be able to take advantage of the better suited for these foes power to do some very specific corner case switches, and that is one. If you've got a shield level 7 with a Hulk sitting there and any kind of 100-point figure you can switch out for him, then you might be into a match where that is the right thing to do. Yeah, I know. It's me too, to be fair. We're both doing it.
The two big Hulk fans are playing a Hulk on the sideline. Who knew?
Yeah, you just reminded me how sad I am that my preferred Joker is 140 and the new Indestructible Hulk is 145.
I know, it's annoying.
That's such a tragedy.
That is a real shame. But anyway, there are things. Even a Cosmic Spider-Man. I could be wrong about this, but. Cosmic Spider-Man can shoot through one barrier to destroy the second barrier, can't he?
I believe so.
Yeah,
like there's no reason you couldn't target a blocking square through another blocking square. Yeah. So theoretically, a 75-point call-in Cosmic Spider-Man could blow out 2 layers of blocking and still leave the rest of your team able to then fill that space.
Yeah. That wasn't to say that Cosmic Spider-Man is bad or not relevant, just saying he doesn't do just multiple levels of blocking like he used to be.
Yeah, he no longer stands in the middle of the office and just blows you apart from the other side.
You no longer need to carry 8 broken wall terrain markers in order to make his attack.
Yeah.
Although I did love blasting through the WizKid's office with him. I can't.
I always say when I play with my opponent, let's try and destroy as few of these walls as possible because we don't want WizKids to get mad at us.
And they always smile kindly and don't say anything.
I break through all of them and remind them that their office is built terribly and open office is the way to go. I mean,
maybe that's the reason why they felt the need to change, improve targeting, is just that people were wrecking their office too much.
Could be. Maybe that's what it is. But their office is in Jersey. How good condition could it really be in?
That's fair.
I had to take a Jersey joke from people I see from New York. So if I did that wrong, I apologize.
Hey, here's a list of figures that might be of interest to you. Felix Faust, Quinjet, Jarvis, Ultron 18.2, Ultron 6. These figures have two things in common. One is they were all pretty much the entirety of last year's Rock World Cup winning team, and the other is that none of them are now legal in this tournament. The only piece, if you don't count ID cards, the only thing that was on Ed Berkowitz's team last year that we could see this year is the Atom at 15 points. So it's a new world out there. if you look continuously through, I'm just looking through like the top 4, the top 8 from last year. First of all, variations of that team are everywhere, or Quinjets at full points that are supported by Ultrons and Atomicas and things that aren't allowed anymore. Felix Faust are all over the place. There's a Resurrection Man, remember him? Mm-hmm. We've got there's a Faust Arcade, that's retired. Quinjet with Jarvis and stuff, that's retired. Red Sun, Wonder Woman, Solaris, and Morlock. That's playable again.
That's all, yeah, it's all kosher.
There you go. The 8th place.
Way to pat yourself on the back there, Tom.
To be fair, that was Joshua Ernest. My team.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, Red Sun, Wonder Woman. Sorry, I thought you were talking about because I heard Devil Dinosaur, I guess. I don't know.
No.
Devil Dinosaur.
Josh could bring back almost his entire team last year exactly as it was.
Except for the box, yeah.
Yeah, because he used Pandora's box. The box is a big component of that team.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's in 300s. There's no direct conversation, much like we couldn't have a direct conversation with last week, as we kind of know what's there. So if you have we know what to plan for, what kind of strategies to plan for. We kind of discussed that. So you got to know how to beat these, and we kind of thrown some of the ideas out on that one. So hopefully we've helped you. If you're not ready yet, you're braver than I am. So we hope we've helped in some way, shape, or form. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was going to say, let's ask the real elephant in the room. How do you beat Unum Mind, and how do you beat Jakeem Thunder?
Roll dice and hope they hit. That's really it, right?
I would say bring Chase Green Arrow is a huge feature of trying to take on Unum Mind.
Yeah, but at the same time, at the beginning of my turn, and should they happen to choose a decent defense power, then, I mean, Green Arrow's only going to get so far because the Green Arrow still only triggers on the defense power on the dial.
Well, that's fair. I'm not saying Green Arrow does it solo. I'm just saying it's nice when you've got a lot of stop clicks to try to find somebody who doesn't care about him.
But Green Arrow's definitely he's one of the stronger things to have ready to go. Him and the Hawkeye, I think, are almost must-haves as far as sideline holding. Because the Hawkeye does a lot of good against a few teams that are out there. And especially if you're looking at an opposing team and realizing that the Nick Fury is just not going to do it, not going to cut it at the right time. Now, Nick Fury is going to work against the Unum Mind as well. But this is also a situation where you have a Green Arrow ID and the shield level 7, right? So,
what about Nighthawk Prime? Are we going to see any of him?
Oh, totally.
Yep. You know what? I think if the guy doesn't have a Jakeem on his team and he doesn't have a Unum Mind, it's because he's got a Nighthawk Prime. I mean, he won't have a Jakeem because he's got a Nighthawk Prime. Or he could very well, there's the possibility of, and I'm not going to discount this idea, both a Unum Mind and a Nighthawk Prime as to improve your mirror matchup. Because, the Unum Mind against another Unum Mind, as we discussed, is a really difficult matchup, but that's in another discussion for the limited format. It's Unum Mind on Unum Mind. You'll have the advantage of being able to up your stats against their Unum Mind, where they won't be able to if you decide to go with that. Although we might have just said that now, and every single Unum Mind is going to be bringing in Nighthawk Prime. What? What's the matter with us? Who knows?
Yeah. We saw a lot of Jakeem Merc with a Mouth. I wonder if that's going to be a thing we see again. Because that had what was that, 2 out of 4 teams in Canadian national top 4 had that combo. So I could very well see more of that.
Outsiders, a little 25-point Nightwing on every team.
I mean, yeah, maybe not, because both Unum Mind has access to stealth in his pool. Jakeem may or may not have supreme intelligence, or can just pick stealth if he anticipates that. I don't know how strong outsiders will be.
That's because, well, keep in mind that Nightwing is a wild card. So if you have some way of giving him Superman ally or initiative, then you could always get through the stealth that way, and then outsiders them.
Yeah.
Again, Nighthawk Prime on his own, or rather, Nightwing on his own. It's a classic mistake. Nightwing on his own, semi-useful. Nightwing with some cleverly designed things around it, potentially useful. If you've got, if it's only for one turn, you could always call in a Superman, wildcard Superman ally, take away the outsiders, and then go a whole hog. Make your team in such a way that if it gets one good turn, that might be all it takes. Who knows?
So, ideas have shown up. Think about it. Use these ideas to build your teams. Use these ideas in your practice. Go both ways. We don't say don't use Unum Mind and Jakeem Thunder, but knowing if you're not planning on using them, know how to play against them. If you are using them, know how they work and know how countermeasure, right?
Yeah.
So.
You just reminded me of something that interesting that I guess came up and has been brewing for a while. Outside of Jakeem, I guess I should lead up with. I was reading on HC Realms a thread where somebody said that with the whole burst aura thing, apparently Peggy is a burst now as opposed to an aura, which means she's even worse.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you mean like she triggers, and you have to be within the 3 squares of her when that triggers, as opposed to it's constantly going on. Then you call her a power carrier and do something. Either way, like you'd have. Ultimately, with Peggy Carter, you still have to have her on the board to start with.
So Peggy Carter is near unusable now because you can't use her as an ID card because her thing is the beginning of the turn. She's not as good on map. So if you're not playing a Jakeem, your prime slot is pretty much open now because there's just not that much out there currently outside of what? If you're playing Scourge, okay, right, that's a main source thing. But if you're playing an ID card team, you're not playing Jakeem. Like the prime slot's almost not as much of a concern these days. I was noticing because I was building my ID card lineup. I was like, there's only one prime I even want to use as far as my lineup goes.
Well, you also got to think too is when we saw that prime lineup, we had 3 sets all of a sudden come out without primes.
I was about to say that.
Brought the primes back, and a lot of those primes aren't really hot topic discussions just yet. They're not wearing black and not selling Bullet Club shirts.
It's a little inside.
That's a double whammy for those of you who've been inside of a hot topic. Supernatural. Anyway, but yeah, the absence of new primes, the primes that we're talking about that have been existed, other than what's new in Thor, is really the selection we've had. I think that's the biggest factor in. Oh my gosh, the prime slot is wide open because we're not using Peggy Carter. If you're using Jakeem Thunder, it's slammed shut. But then it's wide open if you're not using Jakeem Thunder for Nighthawk Prime, who's really the only other one we're talking about as far as the metagame is concerned, because they beat Peggy out of the metagame with the rulings.
They were like, let's make sure we never see her again in any capacity ever again.
How sad.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to miss her.
She was a Nick Fury for those who just couldn't get their hands on a Nick Fury, and she was also cheaper than a Nick Fury as far as acquirability.
Or it was a why not both situation if you're playing a Quinjet where you just kept her the whole time.
Exactly. So, there it is. So, minds have swirled about 300-point constructed modern age for the finals. Hope you got the information you need. But it's time to continue some ramblings I had from last week. We're going to go back to the limited discussion because part of the limited discussion involved the Unum Mind. Now, I tried to ramble my way through it, but Tom brought the numbers. And the Unum Mind versus Unum Mind matchup is probably the worst thing. If you're playing a 400-point single or one-man army Unum Mind in the limited format, you got a pretty good chance of killing a lot of things, winning a lot of games. But you do have one really boring, stupid, bad matchup. And it is your friend, the other Unum Mind. And Tom, Why does that matchup suck as much as I described last week?
Well, I call it the Unum Mind paradox, and it's not really numbers as much as it is just the reality of what it is to play Unum Mind versus Unum Mind. So, first of all, we know that Unum Mind at 400 points. I'm just going to call it 400 points. I'm aware that you've actually got some points left over for some special terrain or a special object or something. Yes, that's all well and fine. But first of all, if you're playing a Unimind at full value, make sure that if you're playing special terrain, it's the boxing ring, since otherwise there's the possibility somebody could break through it. You don't want to blow up your Merc jet. You don't want to blow up your invisible jet. That would be giving up 5 points and putting yourself in a position to lose. If you want to play it with a special object, don't play it with a special object that can be destroyed. That would be giving you the opportunity to lose that. Make sure that you put together a team that gives up no points unless they manage to just nuke any of your Eternals after having nuked your Unimind, and that is some hard stuff to do because you are looking at unbelievable numbers. You may be looking at outwit protection if that's what it comes to. If you don't want if you don't need the outwit protection, if stealth would do it, take stealth and crank up all your values into the orbit. You'll have 3 stop clicks, each one of which gives you regeneration, some of which have steal energy. If your opponent can somehow get through all of that, and they become a cloud of Eternals, and then they can start actually trying to destroy some things and getting some points from it. If your opponent can do that in 40 or 45 minutes, and that's pretty impressive. There's no question that Unimind at 400 points in this session is an incredibly good play. If you happen to sit down across from another Unimind, I would encourage you to remember 2 very basic rules. All right? These are easy to remember, so you should have no trouble. Anyone listening to this, no trouble at all. Ready? Rule number 1. Never push unless your opponent is pushed out. Okay? Rule number 2. Always use regeneration if you hit a stop click. Put these 2 rules together, and you will never lose. And I don't mean you are probably not going to lose. I mean, it is almost statistically impossible for you to lose. Not completely statistically impossible, but almost. And here's the reason why. And I encourage anyone who's listening here, either of you guys, Jay or Jason, anyone who's listening at home, if you can think of an exception to this, then go ahead and tell me about it. But by my line of thinking, here's how it works. Of the many things that Unimind can give himself, 2 things he can't give himself are Flurry. I don't think he has any access to Flurry. And another thing would be Colossal Stamina. These are the only things that would allow you to always be regeneration. What?
Always be. Yeah.
I'm so confused.
Ignore the chat.
All right, I'll ignore the chat. So anyway, he has no way of blowing through blocking terrain, I'm aware of. And if he has no way of attacking every turn, and he has no way of attacking multiple times in the same turn, that means the most you'll ever be able to do is put out 2 attacks every 3 turns. So if you never push unless your opponent is pushed out, that means that after your opponent hits you onto a stop click, you're guaranteed to not be pushed out. Ergo, you're guaranteed to be able to use regeneration. Ergo, you are going to heal off your stop click, because regeneration can't fail these days, right? So as long as you follow the basic rule that says never push unless your opponent is pushed out, then every time you hit your stop click, you'll be able to heal back off of it. You'll have a turn in which to do it, and regeneration can't fail. They can't outwit it because it's part of your stop click. So they can't take it away. So you're always going to heal. And then you take another damage. So let's assume you get hit, and then you get knocked back onto your stop click. All right? For example. What are you guys saying over there?
It's just there's that ruling with regards to the stop click, and there is a level of failure on a 1 or 2 because a stop click is regen -1 now.
Oh, it is? I did not know that. That's good to know, because there is the possibility of failure. All right.
Did that break everything, Tom? I'm sorry.
Well, it doesn't break everything because frankly, it still has to happen 3 times in the same game.
Yeah, it's still 4 out of 6, so 2 out of 3 possible definite regeneration.
Yeah, and for what's worth, you're also still impervious, and at that point, since your impervious is protected, regardless of your outwit, you might as well just go ahead and crank your defense up to 20. And even at that point, there's a very good possibility that they've knocked you on your stop click at all. Then they did so pushing themselves, which means you might have 2 opportunities to try to heal. And even if you set all of that aside, then of course there's also the fact that there are certain intangibles in the game, we're going to be talking later about a map that would allow you to dump yourself into a pit and potentially take unavoidable damage. That is one possible thing that can sway the outcome. But again, if you play it smart, you don't get hit by that stuff. Furthermore, if you happen to be one click away from your stop click and you make an attack that's a critical miss, that could knock you onto your stop click, and then your opponent could take an action to hit you and potentially knock you past your stop click. But that's got to happen 3 times in the game. If you sit down across from the Unum Mind and think, my strategy on this one is going to be assuming that they are going to happen to be one click away from their stop click, then crit miss, then I'll be able to hit them, and it'll happen 3 times, then they'll kill their Eternals, I would argue that's a bad strategy. And I would also argue it's a bad strategy if you assume that when you sit down across from a Unum Mind, you assume that every time they roll regen, or at least 3 times within the course of a 40-minute game, they're going to roll regen and continuously fail it. That's not great odds either. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. How many, if you epic heal off of any of your stop clicks, can you heal to the next stop click? With
I don't believe so. I don't have him. Give me a second to open him up.
I feel like the middle one can, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. The Mighty Thor, Unum Mind. Let's go full point. So the first one, actually the first stop click can bring you back to full one. Yet, no, you can only ever get 2 clicks off of it. So you'll be the one before the previous stop click.
Which is not steal energy in this case?
Which is not steal energy in these cases, no.
Okay. So I'll admit, I wasn't aware of the stop click -1 regen, and that's a good rule. I'm glad you brought it up because I would have completely gone into ROCtober without knowing about it. And for what it's worth, that also means that it gets you out of the infinite loop that would otherwise be a Unum Mind versus Unum Mind contest. A Unum Mind versus Unum Mind contest, however, is still a halfway unwinnable game. It's not... that change to regen is appreciated because that means it's not a completely unwinnable game, but it's exceptionally difficult. And it creates what I like to call the Unum Mind paradox, which is Unum Mind beats almost everything in the field, so you should probably play it. And if everybody plays Unum Mind, then everyone goes up against another Unum Mind. The odds are very good that in a Unum Mind versus Unum Mind contest, no one's going to win. You will suffer 2 losses and no one will score points. In the ROC, if 2 people... if 2 people both score 0 points, they both lose in ROC Swiss, which means they both get pushed to the bottom of the heap. The bottom of the heap that will otherwise also be occupied with other Unum Minds that have faced Unum Minds that also got 0-point losses. And one thing leads to another, and suddenly all the Unum Minds that go up against a Unum Mind in the first round have a very good chance of facing other Unum Minds in subsequent rounds. And so your Unum Mind choice was a terrible choice. Therefore, is Unum Mind a good choice at 400 points? I don't think that there's a good answer because there's no way to answer that question, in my opinion, that isn't dependent upon knowing what the rest of the field is going to do. And if you think I'm going to be that guy and I'm going to play Unum Mind at 400 points, then by all means, go for it with the awareness that everyone else might also choose to be that guy and put yourselves into a bad situation. What I would say is go ahead and try. Not that easy.
Try something else that you kind of Skyped out on us.
Okay, sorry. Try something that has a decent chance of facing Unum Mind. That's all. You don't have to necessarily be able to beat it, but I'll give you a very easy example. This is not a great team, but here's a team that will never lose to Unum Mind. You ready? It goes like this. First of all, you have World's Finest. That's the Batman-Superman duo at 200 points. You add to that an Overdrive. Okay. Now, Overdrive is a bit of a risky play in Limited. You expect a lot of Mr. Nobodies out there, but you're not going to get one if you ever go up against a team that is only Unum Mind. Add to that 4 Green Lanterns that are SR. Throw on a Boxing Ring, a Mjolnir, and a Yarnbjarn. That team has the ability to continuously create a box of barrier every turn that can encompass a 6-square area. Overdrive can carry everyone on the team with the exception of World's Finest, who can move themselves. Basically, you have 2 Green Lanterns set up the box. Overdrive carries everyone in, except for the World's Finest that move themselves in. You close up the box with 2 of the free barriers from the remaining Green Lanterns, and you can just do this for the rest of the game. So as long as you happen to be on a map that has the ability to accommodate that kind of box, and looking over the maps, I'm pretty sure they almost all do, as far as I can tell. At least ones that can't because there is something else in the way that would also prevent being shot at. Therefore, it doesn't really matter. There are things like the WizKid's office where you start blowing up some walls, but because you can put up that free barrier wall regardless of the terrain, it's on the edge, you're still safe. So with creative use of your barriers, that team can't lose to Unum Mind to all intents and purposes. Unum Mind will only ever be able to destroy a broad piece of barrier, and then you'll just put it back up again. Now, will that team beat Unum Mind? Well, it's going to be tricky. World's Finest is going to have to be hitting on basically both their duo attacks as much as possible to prevent Unum Mind just healing off whatever damage is being dealt to them. Of course, the other Green Lanterns can also be part of the offense. What's nice about having that many of them is that you can take shots and not sacrifice your ability to have cycling barriers. You're just going to be careful about how you do it. It'll be very stick and move. You're not going to get a map bonus, and so sometimes it could be difficult. This is not a team that can consistently beat Unum Mind, but it's a team that will never lose to it. And if you can put together a team that will never lose to Unum Mind, but has even a chance of beating it, I think that's better than playing Unum Mind. So everyone can kind of do as they please. It is nice to know that the Unum Mind versus Unum Mind isn't an unwinnable scenario, but it's a profoundly difficult one. And it's also, in my opinion, just extremely unfun to sit there and roll dice at each other until somebody hopes that theirs go roll better than somebody else's. And if that's all the game is going to be, then I don't think you're really getting much out of the experience. Now, of course, the whole idea with the semis is to be able to advance. So advancing means two things. You either need to win or you need a lot of points. I mean, you need to do a combination of both to be in the top half. But knowing that you're going in there with a team that can face another team and potentially constantly get 0-point losses is a dangerous proposition. So yeah, Unum Mind's awesome. But a field full of Unum Minds is a field full of people that are driving themselves to the bottom, and the few left will trickle to the top. However, a field with only one Unum Mind is probably going to see that one sitting on the throne. Where do you fall in between? I don't know. That's the paradox. But my PSA to you is think of something else. Make Heroclix fun for everyone.
My God. I'm officially glad now I'm not playing in that limited format.
Right?
And right there, right here, this is the look of fear. And I'm currently focused on Jay.
What's on your mind, Jay?
Unum Mind is the best.
That's true.
Oh man!
And
So I'm packing my Unum Mind in Eternals, then I guess, guys.
Oh God, I hate it so much.
Yeah, it's a.
What if
Tom said? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
I was
Jay.
gonna say, what if Whiz Kids stopped the cycle of Pick a Power? Like, does everybody remember? I have such fond memories of the 3 months or so between Super Scroll and Jakeem. That just perfect 3 months where there was no Pick a Power really, and everybody was just having fun, creative teams. Really, like I don't remember any negative play experiences that weren't Faust. It was good times. Stop the Pick a Power.
Word Faust. I like the condition there. But you're right.
Yep. It's tough. It's one of those things. It's like the second you give players in the competitive field the option to just create, we create. And if we can do it in the middle of the game, okay, why not?
Yeah, they
Oh no!
She's terrible. Here's Jakeem. He's ridiculous. Here's Goblin King. Here's ridiculous. Here's Iron.
Oh, I was saying such nice things.
I'm sure, Tom, you're gonna have to start that speech all over again in relation to Pick a Power because you're totally Skyping out on us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he's got a witty response that he's actually saying. And
I think he's still frozen.
Tom's still got Canadian internet, I guess.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's funny because I see him open his mouth to say something, and it's just Skyping, and it's oh man. So yeah, it's that thing where it's like, yeah, the Unum Mind, he's great at 400 points, but he's also his own problem. And as Tom said, now Tom has presented a solution. His solution is not necessarily the solution. His solution is a solution that comes with other solutions. Like he put 200 points into that World's Finest, but the other 200 points
just kind of hurt on me.
Just kind of works around. So you get all these other options that kind of come with this figure or with this plan. So maybe not necessarily just a World's Finest is the only option. Maybe you get other ones as well. But it's looking like Barrier is becoming a power that is necessary again.
God.
For sure.
How many Green Lanterns do you have, Jason?
I'm sitting on 2. I almost bought a third from Aiden yesterday.
He posted. Yeah, I was considering it, but I'm also sitting on 2. I think that should be enough.
Our local store, the store I play at, they got a good deal at the distributor. They had bricks of Joker's
Jokers?
Wild for $80, along with Avengers Assemble for $80, and Nick Fury for $80. I'm not gonna lie, I almost considered buying some of it in some vain attempt to make that money back, but I don't think my rate of sale would have made it necessarily fast enough, or I don't think I would have. It was a gamble on the pulls too, you know. You either pulled exactly what you got to resell it or recoup your losses. But Tom, you had a really interesting long speech. I'm sure that was very funny. And I'm sorry, you're just totally Skype. There we go. There we go. Nope, it didn't help.
Aggravating.
Maybe it's just a camera, Tom.
Oh, you can hear me now.
I can hear you. We just can't see you right now.
Well, we can technically see you because he has the picture.
Yeah. Him with his kissy face next to Galactus. It's actually pretty awesome. We're just kind of vamping to hope that Tom can reconnect to the internet very carefully.
Well, he'll have to move and not live in Canada for that to work, so it'll take a while.
Hey, I'm a Canadian. I'm just paying a lot for my internet. And I don't expect a lot of people to do that. It's to get good internet in Canada, you have to give up some things. I've given up cable and occasional meals. All right. But we're going to move on to questions. Tom's got a little bit to add on, but we're going to give him a little bit of time to relog into his computer. But Jay, before we move on to that, did you want to kind of accumulate your thoughts after Tom has terrified the crap out of you?
About this topic or about the game at large?
Both. I mean, this topic specifically and how you kind of view the game.
I'm very uncomfortable about those semifinals. Oh, and I'm also nowhere close to the 200 points, so that's sad. Yeah, I'm not very excited for those, for the semis. But then again, the top 50% isn't such a hard requirement, theoretically. And I feel like the team that I have is just the versatile, so it'll at least have good coverage of non-Unum Mind, and hopefully all this Unum Mind talk we're doing is going to mind trick people and they're not actually playing at full points. So I might have a chance.
Yeah.
As far as the game at large, I'm a little more comfortable. I'm very interested to see what sort of unique teams we're going to get, both from all of those Canadians as well as the actual well-known competitive players. It'll be very interesting.
Canadians and actual well-known competitive players. That hurts my feelings.
Well, we already know your team. You
Yeah,
haven't played a different team in I don't even know how long. I mean, it's been the same team, just a slight variation. It's been what 200 points can I play? Sorry, what 165 points can I play with Devil Dinosaur and the Teleporter?
Have I been doing that? Yes, I have. Actually, since Quebec, it's been a different variation of maybe 20 to 30 points at best. Like in Quebec, I didn't use a boxing ring. At Canada Cup, I did use a boxing ring. Come this, I'm losing the boxing ring, losing the Atom, and I'm putting 2 Carnages on the team. It's been a fluctuation of 20 points in the
so many bodies on that team now.
So weird.
It's gonna be so great. I can't wait to. Well, how many? I guess how many rounds of Swiss depends. But I can't wait to somehow play Canadians in every round of Swiss.
Well, in Canada, or sorry, in the semifinal, there is 4 rounds of Swiss. That's it.
Right, I'm talking about the finals.
Well, but the finals, I think it's 5 rounds of Swiss, cut the top 32.
Interesting.
If I remember correctly. I'm going off of memory on that one, but you know what's funny about being an internet show and having 2 monitors is that you can use a second monitor to look this kind of stuff up and do the freaking research.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I mean, it also applies to last year's Rock World Cup, but there's a lot going on in the fun department. Like, I'm not going to make the Critical Clicks tournament, but that looks like fun.
That looks like so much fun.
Team Worlds format is amazing. The Murder Mystery show is going to be great. Battle Royales are always fun, especially when it's hopefully a lot of Thor, which is in 2 Battle Royales, you're opening up a brick. So a lot of good rarity going on there. So there's going to be a lot of fun, even if and when I lose in the semifinals, as well as hopefully getting some camera time with you. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I stand corrected. The finals is actually 4 rounds of Swiss, and then a cut to the top 32, which feels slow in comparison to a lot of the way the Rock runs events. But because they've been running a lot of 5-round events for higher end stuff. I don't know. Maybe that might change when we get there. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I do believe they're also on a time limit with the hotel itself.
Well, last year, I think the final ended at like midnight.
Yeah, I made my preparations on that one this time for sure. Because it would have been terrible if I made the finals. I would have been like, "Can I get that money now? I need to get home." Oh boy.
Oh yeah, my flights are actually crack of dawn on Friday morning, the day after my anniversary, which is going to be so we're going to have a nice night, and then wait, I have to go to bed at like 8 to get up at like I literally think I have to get up at 4 in the morning to get ready. And then similar ridiculous time for Monday, so that's going to be fun. When I'm like, I'm finished the tournament, even let's say at 10, best case scenario, I have 2 hours or 3 hours of sleep. That's fun.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Is like I think we're all getting on the same flight, like the 6 a.m. flight to Toronto.
Are we all? I know I'm on the same flight as Mike and Tom, but
then now we're all on the same flight then, because me and Amber got that same flight, and I.
Oh my god, that's going to be the most rowdy, rambunctious.
Rowdy, rambunctious people doing this.
Yeah, but to basically sum it up, while the competitive scene is not the best it's ever been, there's going to be a lot of fun to be had because Team Sealed, I think, is just one of my favorite formats. The Sealed is always great, and getting enough packs to not pull garbage is always good, and playing with Tom is always a good time. So there's going to be a lot of fun to be had, especially considering I'm not playing at the Super Q on Friday, so that day is just going to be Battle Royales. Hope to get that Beta Ray Bill somehow in one of them. So it's going to be a fun time, no matter what happens.
Yeah. All right. I'm not sure we're...
Tom said 5 minutes, about 7 minutes
ago. You guys' computer could very well be taking it. There's Tom. Speak of the devil.
Yeah.
Your ears must be burning, Tom. Well, it's not his internet burning, that's for sure. We're going to let Tom get a couple seconds to get settled before we move on. I know we're going to announce what we're actually planning throughout the weekend come this week. I think tomorrow or Wednesday, I'm going to put up a thing on our Facebook. So keep your eyes open for that. We're going to arrange some stuff for ourselves. I know I discussed last week that we're going to have our little meet and greet chit chat thing where you bring a figure. We're going to have some small maps, either Battle Royale maps or something else. Really, the focus isn't so much about playing a game of Heroclix, like trying to win, as much as it is just kind of bringing your favorite figure and hanging with those of us at the Metal Lab and Married with Clixed, because Amber's going to be there as well. And just kind of playing the game of Heroclix while we talk. Because, do what we do, and that brings us all together. And let's also have a couple minutes here to talk. It's going to be kind of like a speed dating thing. We're going to have like 5-10 minutes chit chat and then move on to the next table. We might have a lineup. I'm not 100% sure. It depends on who we get interested in it as well. And we are trying to arrange something with a bunch of podcasters. And by trying to arrange, I mean, I swear to God, one day I'll actually talk to somebody. I have been so busy at work. I can't organize anybody. I might have to get Jay to do his thing and round up the troops, because usually for an event like this we have a big round table where I have a discussion with a bunch of people who play this game. I don't think you're going to be able to do that unless I can arrange something on the weekend of, like the Friday or or even the Saturday, where we go into the finals and say, hey guys, come to my hotel room, we're all going to sit in front of my little laptop and figure something out, or maybe even just on the stream. The Saturday is wide open. I'm trying to get as much as I can in, but definitely on the Friday night, once everything's kind of settled down, we'll have a time out there for the Facebook, and we'll just kind of do a sit chat. Is
that the night of the that's the night of the dinner, right?
I think it is. Ruining my weekend. Oh yeah. I was playing this after the dinner.
Oh, okay.
That was my plan. My plan was doing this after the dinner or before or something like that. One of the two. Again, we'll figure out that schedule sometime this week. Amber's not feeling very well right now. I haven't been able to sit down and kind of mash this together because she's on the computers with me most of the weekend. So So glad to be down there. Tom, you're back, right? Nope. Yep.
Yeah, I don't love my chances.
Okay, well, your voice came through pretty nice there, so we're not too bad. And we kind of muddled our way through things. And I know you had a Cartographer's Corner lined up, but we haven't got the questions yet. So if you want to regale us with the tale of the maps, if you think you can manage it.
Oh, Lordy.
Or not.
I'm going to try more things to get the internet.
Get the internet to be better.
Does practice make your internet better or just make it worse?
Actually, practice makes it worse. As I have discovered many a time. I blame Diablo or Blizzard. I'm not sure which. They do wonderful things, those two. All right. Tom, I'm all vamped out at this point. Is Cartographer's Corner going to make it, or are we going to have to put that off? And and we can do that and maybe just move on to questions. I don't know. I'm trying to keep this alive, I swear to God, guys. I'm so sorry about the breakdown here. I blame Tom's internet, not Tom himself. I can't blame Tom. He's too beautiful for that.
What a lovely man.
All right. We're going to move to questions. And we'll do Cartographer's Corner on the next episode, which will be the next Monday after we've returned and are beat up from ROCtober.
Oh, those are the best episodes.
Yeah. Nathaniel also chimed in and knows if our American fans are going to get a good one on this one. Tom's internet makes Comcast look good. All right. Who's ready for questions? I'm ready for questions.
I'm pretty vamped out too, so yes.
All right. So if you have any questions, you happen to be watching us live right now in the chat, put capital letters question ahead of it so that I can catch it in the chat. There are a couple questions I didn't notice. Some of you guys will not be forgotten. I just didn't put the instructions like I usually do in here because for some reason I was a hot mess setting things up. So, all right. Let's see what we got here. We had it on Facebook. All of our questions come from the Facebook first because I put up the announcement on the Facebook. Then people can throw their questions in the comments, and I can find them a little easier when I've got my life together, which I don't have right now. And Tom has cut out. Wonderful. All right. So we're going to start with the man with the stamp. See his beautiful rubber stamp married with Clixed, courtesy of Chris Stockhouse. So let's put a stamp on the episode because every time he asks questions, we know it's an official episode. He's missed a couple, so we have some fake episodes out there. All right. Chris asks, have you guys built your team for the 300-point Rock Age event? I have been trying to go through all my old stuff, and every time I see an old piece, I get a nostalgia blast, and I want that piece on my team. Then I go back to looking and find even more pieces I want to use. Is anyone else feeling like Rock Age has so many fun options it makes it almost too hard to just pick one team to play? On a side note, does anybody have a morphing jar I can borrow? No! I know nobody else has a morphing jar that Chris Stockhouse can borrow. You get that poison away from that format. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone for an extended weekend of Heroclix fun. I used to run into the same problem. Then I met my good friend Alyosha Craven, and then he became kind of Golden Age or Rock Age, as it were. And yeah, I'm all over Alyosha teams. So I've talked myself out of that problem for sure. Jay, I'm sure you're the type that just, I want to build with this. Oh, I remember this guy. Can I build with this guy? Oh, you're nodding against it. Oh, your mic cut out. Your mic's cut out, Jay.
How about that? How about
there
now?
it is. There we go. Oh,
on my okay. My problem is make the best team first, and then make teams after that. For some reason, that is not a good reason. So that definitely happens to me literally all of the time.
Is it?
Yeah, it is my main Heroclix problem.
Well, as far as the Rock Age is concerned, anyway, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. All right. All right. Oh boy, does Stephen Clark Jr. have a row of questions for us? We're gonna start with question number 1. When TMNT 28 Space Leonardo uses his trait, can he remove resources? No, he doesn't remove resources. He only stops the specific equip action. If I remember correctly.
There's no equipment resources right now. I don't think so.
So no, he doesn't.
Sorry. Except for the Punisher van, which is not relevant.
Oh yeah, it would stop. Like it would stop, or it would get in the way of Punisher equipping the weapons, but it doesn't do anything really to the resource because the resource effect happens. It doesn't stop him from having the resource. It just stops the equipment from happening on the resource itself, right?
Mm.
So it doesn't really stop the resource as it was hamper his ability to use the equipment that are provided by the resource.
Which is basically the whole resource.
Which is basically the whole resource. But really the resource functions on, I put the weapon out, I move my dial, and that's all the resource really has to do with it. The weapons themselves are their own effect and are probably actually better than the Punisher van when it comes down to it. All right. Question 2. After you bring in the Supreme Intelligence with Wolvesbane, this is WizKids Marvel 2015 Wolvesbane. When the Supreme Intelligence takes damage, do you damage Wolvesbane like her trait says? I'm not 100% sure. Jay?
I think you would click it normally.
Okay. Yeah, I believe it does too. Like you just click the dial and her
doesn't affect how she's K. Can that actually be ignored? Can't be ignored.
No, you can't pulse wave very past that. I remember that part of it.
A good question.
Let's see. Let's see if you're actually moving the. All right. Manifesting through you. Stop turning the dial when this click is revealed. Give the assigned character a power action. Place it on its card. Replace the assigned character with Supreme Intelligence on the same click number as the assigned character. When it takes damage, the assigned character takes the same amount of damage. If either the assigned character or Supreme Intelligence KO'd, so is the other character, but no points are scored for Supreme Intelligence. Now, here's where I kind of see it, is that the figure's not really on the board, and therefore the traits aren't really triggering.
Right, but for some characters, you can't ignore them, like Joker.
Well, it's not a matter of I can't ignore it. She's lost that power, technically, by not being
right, but I'm saying, like, Joker works normally with the Supreme Intelligence. Like, his trait, you click and you whatever. But her trait doesn't change how she KOs. Like, she has normal KO clicks. It just affects what click number she moves to.
Yeah.
I think I think she would get ignored, essentially.
But this sounds like a job for the win in this case. We're not going to have all the answers when it comes to rules. It's weird like that. It's got the uncontrolled. When she would take damage, roll a d6 instead. Result of 1 to 2, result of 3 to 4, result of 5 to 6, blah, 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 blah. All right. After you bring in the Supreme Intelligence with the ha Joker, when the Supreme Intelligence takes damage, do you damage Joker like his trait said? Jay, you said yes?
Yeah, it would work normally with, he can KO if you lose all of his tokens and whatnot.
All right. Excellent. I'm going to try to add Tom again, see what's up going on there, because I miss him. Not that I don't like you, Jay. All right. Next up, Brandon Lambert. How do you guys feel about the changing the world shield traits from Nick Fury Agent's Shield with the newer Shield figures currently available? Oh, geez, who's new with the Shield team?
I don't think there's anything competitively relevant with those, unfortunately, really.
You know what? I used that Steve Rogers Captain America a lot. I remember that. I loved him.
Yeah. But the other thing is, how many of these Shield characters are going to be adjacent?
Yeah, it's always that is a thing that always comes up. It's how many of them are going to be adjacent to the opponent when it comes down to it. In a lot of cases, almost none of them.
Well, because Shield is fundamentally a ranged-based team, so
yeah. So, excuse me.
I don't see it being very useful.
Nope. All right. That does it for the Facebook. Wow, it was very short Facebook. A lot of rules questions from Stephen Clark Jr., but it looks like everybody got their questions in there. All right. There was one here. Oh, okay. Paul Waller. Anyone playing any fun build pickup games at ROCtober? I hope to be able to play something. I'm probably going to bring a stack of 1 or 2 keywords as far as figures are concerned. And, if the ability to play a pickup game presents itself, I will try to do so. If not, it doesn't happen. I'm going to be behind the camera and on the microphone a lot for the weekend. If my understanding of what my coverage expectations are, I'm doing the team championships. I'm doing the semifinal event. I'm doing coverage of the super qualifier, the first thing on the Friday. So, like, Friday, I'm basically tied to that chair. Saturday, I'm basically tied to the chair until the evenings. Saturday, I'm playing in the finals, and that's my week. Or Sunday, I'm playing in the finals. That's basically my weekend. So, if I get a chance to play any kind of pickup game in the evening, I'll take that chance. If not, it does or doesn't happen for me. But that's because I'm so focused on content creation while I'm there, I don't get a great deal of time to play. Jay, what about you?
My timetable is Friday is Hard Rocks, maybe Battle Royales. Try and get as much camera time with you as possible since I'm basically free that day. And then basically team semis the next day, and then final. I guess maybe on Sunday. Maybe. Not really planning on having that much free time like that. If anything, I want as much playtesting as possible, or even just playtesting to get games in with people, because there are going to be people who I can't guarantee I'll get to play again. So probably not for me.
All right. And Tom, even though his face has kind of showed up, it's not looking good for his unfortunate internet situation. So we'll see what goes there. All right. The King 200X does a Scarlet Centurion stop Unum Mind? There's been basically there's been a rewording with his powers, and the fact that when he does hit with his incapacitate, it's now states the target can't use powers. My understanding is that that does kind of stop his use of powers, but that also requires that you send a Scarlet Centurion.
Yeah, he starts with a 10 attack.
The 10 or 11?
I think it's a 10, not likely. Actually, my Hulk pool has a similar thing where if he hits with an attack roll that's like 3 or higher, he then I think he can't use all their powers as well. You gotta hit 3 higher than whatever. Yeah, Unumind's defense is gonna be, right? Unless you have awesome outsiders or whatever, I think. Neither is a great plan.
Yeah. And it's that problem of Scarlet Centurion has the ability to kind of stop his power options, but he doesn't really have the stopping power, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like he's good, but he doesn't have the oomph behind him in order to put an end to it. Yeah, you're right. He does start with a 10 attack.
What's the fact?
Probability control.
140 points, and that's an incapacitate. So you have to hit with him, then follow up. So,
yeah. And of course, you got to understand too, is a lot of our conversation in regards to Unum Mind today focused. In the 300-point realm, you're dealing with the 165-point Unum Mind. But he's still got the double perplex, right? Excuse me. In the realm of, 400 points, you're dealing with the whole dial, is what we were talking about as well. So if we look at those two options themselves, you know what I mean? So, anything you want to add to that while I get some research done here on the next question?
No, nothing to add there.
All right. Then we talk Caleb Reddick. What about Chameleon within 3 squares of Unum Mind? And if my understanding is correct, there's something about stopping him from being able to replace characters, right? Yeah, opposing characters within 3 squares can't use shape change or be replaced, which is a great ability until you realize that you got to kill him first.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, and then you're dedicating 70 points to that, and all Chameleon does besides that is perplex, because you're basically playing most of his points for his option switching abilities. So you're paying 7 points for that.
And when you replace Chameleon with somebody else, Other than to check to see if he becomes chameleon again, he doesn't do anything else other than that, right? So really, the chameleon is brought in to bring better characters in, but he's flexible in the sense that you can bring other options. A chameleon within 3 squares of Unum Mind, I mean, you might be able to Peggy Carter him, but being within 3 squares of the Unum Mind to start, and then I believe when you got to give him a power action to switch, so now you're in the middle of the turn, which means you can't Peggy Carter because you got to do that at the beginning of the turn. It's all kinds of nightmare scenarios. It's like everything sounds good until you actually start to work out the math on it. You look at the great thing in this case. It's like, oh yeah, if you can kill him and you have a chameleon within 3 squares of him, he's gonna die, and you're not gonna get all those 3 characters back. But one of the problems we have with the Unum Mind is killing him.
Right, and also it's kind of good that he turns into all those characters because you get to score so many points. So it's almost detrimental to do the chameleon trick with him.
It's actually, if you got a plan to kill a Unum Mind, you're probably better off having a follow-up energy explosion, because I believe all of those characters come with toughness on their last clicks.
Yeah, but then they also all pop up within 4 squares of him, so there's no way they're going to be bunched.
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, okay, but a lot of characters, again, with energy explosion have multi-target. So
yeah. You're better off killing Unum Mind and not trying to do anything funky, because overall, hard to execute. Is it even worth executing? Questionable.
Yeah. All right. Next up, the King 200X has another question. Mr. Mix's Pitlick with the Supreme Intelligence. Is it worth it, Jay? Do you think it's worth it to have Mr. Mix's Pitlick with the Supreme Intelligence?
I don't know, because in order to do full efficiency, he has to put himself out there, which risks getting killed. It's iffy.
Yeah.
I feel like there's better uses of it.
Well, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think you also get probability control on one of the clicks with them, and I believe that click also has precision strike, right?
Precision and probable click 5, and then you also have to remember that Mixie is less good now because of the new willpower thing.
That's right. Willpower works differently now in relation to his power. Those of you unaware, the ruling on pushing damage is now after the action resolves. The pulse wave adds the tokens prior to the resolution of the action, but the pushing damage itself doesn't occur until the action has resolved itself. As a result, the action's resolving. The pulse wave is now over, which means I get all of my powers and abilities working again. And he's not, all of a sudden, all he's doing is stopping those characters, so you need kind of a follow-up to go with them, if that makes sense.
Double tokening is still good.
I didn't say it was, like I said, it wasn't bad, but
not bad, but yeah.
But not, it's not solving what you might think it's solving. I'm not sure. Like, does Supreme Intelligence add anything else to Mix's Pitlick that might be more useful?
EK turn 1, so he's not just sitting there doing nothing.
I'm trying to. I remember playing against a team that had a Mix's Pitlick and a Supreme Intelligence, but it wasn't on the Mix's Pitlick, I believe. It was on the Hulk, I want to say.
Oh, the Canada Cup team?
Yeah, but that team was just
got sidestep on him, yeah.
Yeah, it was just so insane what was all of a sudden just in my face. Like, what is this?
Yeah, 13 and 5 is
Yeah. So, and of course, you had the Carnage starting with the Colossal Retaliation. You had no choice but to attack that Hulk because it's here and it's going to be quaking you all day. And if it gets a single target quake, that's a 4 damage quake coming at you.
Wait, 5 because he had Proteus on him?
That's right, he had Proteus on it. Oh, man, I puke when I think about it in my dreams still.
12
it was
5 if he doesn't fail the turn. Oh,
it was such an in-your-face strong team. And you really, a team like that, you got to keep your cool. It's hard to do it.
That's funny because in the Exiles, Hulk 2099 was one of the more big threats that Proteus possessed. So that's actually kind of comic accurate. I like it.
Yeah. All right, that seems to be doing it for the chat. It also seems to be doing it for Tom. Unfortunately, Tom has been defeated by terrible Canadian internet. I kind of want to make a Sarah McLachlan video of just Tom's.
Yeah, I know.
On the internet.
It's the worst.
Oh, there he is! Just
I know. But unfortunately, I'm doing this now on my phone, which is, as you can well imagine, where I don't have the spreadsheets for Cartographer's Corner because my laptop at this point has completely failed. It can't even take a tether.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's your internet provider, just so we can just put them on blast right here?
Well, the funny part is, you'd think that if nothing else, it would successfully tether.
Yeah.
Anyway, wait. I think I might have a degree of functionality on my computer, and if I can send you the documents, then you can open them, and I can walk through them. How's that sound?
All right. That might open up some more time for some questions throughout things. So if you're watching live right now, you might get some extra questions. Tom is going to send me the things, and then we're going to try to I'm going to need a PowerPoint for this, right?
You are. I'm very sorry, everybody, listening at home for the unprofessionality of all this. I worked very hard on these things, and then the internet just stopped working. So anyway, for the time being, I'm on my phone and I'm on my data, so I'm glad you can hear me. Let us see if I can now send these to Jason. And Jason, I'm going to send these to you at marrywithclicks@gmail.com, okay?
Make sure it's compatible with PowerPoint 2010. Well, let's see if my computer is.
There you go. Subject line, conveniently, stuff. So, while Jason tries to see if he can open these, I'll give a little bit of explanation as to what it is that Jason's going to be opening. I got really excited when the Thor set dropped for a variety of different reasons, not least of which the fact that the Thor set is super awesome, and two of the best things in it are, in my opinion, the maps. The maps for the Mighty Thor were the Bifrost Bridge. That was from the OP kit, I guess I should specify, were the Bifrost Bridge, as well as the Jotunheim Lake. And both of these are maps that ostensibly are big for knockback characters, on account of the one being you can knock them back into a pit where they fall forever, take unavoidable damage, and the other one just doubles down on knockback. This comes at the same time that the rules change has given us all kinds of new cool things as far as knockback is concerned, including the fact that Quake now is worth playing. In fact, not only is it worth playing, but it's amazing. The fact that Force Blast, well, it's always been good, and Super Strength now causes knockback when you hit people close up. So it's a whole new world of knocking people back, and it's an exciting new time for maps that really give you a bit of benefit for doing that. So the hope was that we would have a chance to look at these two, because I think that for the first time, for one thing, the Bifrost particularly provides an interesting new feature to the game. That is to say, it's actually not an entirely new feature, but it's nice, one that we haven't had in a while, which is an actual practical map that you can build around to let the map do some damage to your opponent. It's not Krakoa, it's not going to end the game for you in all likelihood, but if you design a team that can work with it well, you have the ability to use that map to your advantage and really, do some serious work. How are we doing there, Jason?
All right, we got the Bifrost open, and thank goodness for Google Slides.
Indeed. All right, so proceed. This is Cartographer's Corner for the Bifrost, and I'm just going to keep tapping my phone so I can see it. So here we are. This is our first look. And for those who haven't seen it before, the orange squares are special terrain. We'll get to that in a second. We've got a little bit of elevated terrain down one side, some blocking down the middle, and some bits and pieces of hindering. So on the surface of it, this is a fairly normal, balanced map with various different terrain types. However, as you'll see in the next slide, those little bits and pieces of special terrain are well worth their weight in gold. I'm sorry. My whole thing is turning down now. Okay. Spacebar should do it. There you go. Points of interest. So, interdimensional squares. Orange squares are interdimensional squares. They're square terrain. When a character occupies an interdimensional space square, after resolutions, place the characters and the nearest possible square possible that isn't interdimensional space, and deal it one unavoidable damage. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, unavoidable damage. Ain't nothing you can do about it. And the active player decides ties for nearest. So there's a number of different things to unpack here. So, next slide. Firstly, these are clear terrain. So, You can move through them all you want. This is a thing that in the first time I ever played on them, I had a series of opponents that just steered clear of them altogether, thinking that as soon as they walked into the pit, they would fall forever. Not true. By all means, run on through there. Use it as clear terrain. That means it's unrestricted movement, but it also means that there's no reason for you to stop when you enter it, not only when you're moving, but when you are moved. Next slide. Around there, we have lots of nearby walls and blocking terrain, meaning lots of knockback damage potential. There's more to these little bits of special terrain than just land in them and fall forever. You also have the ability to be knocked into a wall or the edge of the map, take some damage, then stop moving, then fall down a bit, and take even more damage. You can really stack up the damage here because, it's not like you stop as soon as you enter them. So by all means, knock somebody into the edge of the map, deal them some damage, they fall forever, they take more damage, and they pop right back next to you so that you can keep on blasting away. And not only that, next slide. I'm learning of this as we go myself. The nearest square possible has lots of possibilities for shenanigans. As you can see on the map here, I've indicated the X's are places where maybe you fall, and the O's are different possibilities of where you might land. So you can see in the top left of the map there's the opportunity to fall down the pit and then appear on the other side of the wall. Or you could appear closer in. You could go to either side of that big block of blocking terrain in the middle there, or at the bottom, you can actually go an additional 3 squares from where you ended up. By going there. This is a great thing if you've got an activation click or a character that can take 1 damage and doesn't necessarily lose anything by doing so. If you can't get them quite as far as you might want them to, by all means, run them as far as they can into some of this terrain, let them fall, and they'll pop right on the other side. Giving them a little bit of extra movement, sort of. And not only that, but getting the past their activation click. And not only that, next slide, we also have... Sorry, I'm catching my breath. Both offensive and defensive applications. So the only thing to recognize about that is the fact that, as I said, you've got the ability to both use this for activation clicks as well as using it against your opponent, knocking them down and making them fall forever, which can be wonderfully painful. So, next slide. Our next point of interest are the knockback squares. The screen's looking a little weird on my screen, but it might be just mine. What I've indicated here in sort of the crossed out areas are all of the terrain squares where you could be knocked back into weird terrain. So everything that you see that is crossed out there, everything that's grayed, is a square where you could get knocked back into the pit and take damage. Pay special attention to all the places where you can't. If you happen to be going up against somebody on this map, those are the squares that you want your characters to be in, and you want your opponents to be all the ones where they can get knocked around. Because, of course, knockback can trigger on any old attack, let's not forget. You don't need to have powers that work for it specifically. So if you can get your opponent into position to knock them into a pit, but you can avoid it yourself by being in one of those squares, go for it. With TK, not quite so easy. Next slide. The next slide will show all the places where TK could potentially knock you in, and there are a lot more of those. TK is almost nowhere to hide. So if you're in any one of those grayed out squares that you're seeing there, then TK will throw you right into a pit, and you'll be very sorry for it. Next slide. Next point of interest is that it's an asymmetrical map layout, and I always find this interesting because Heroclix maps are very often designed where it doesn't really matter what side you're on. This is if you lose map and your opponent takes you here, think about it for a second, because what you'll see is that all the elevated terrain is at one end of the map, and 70% of the blocking terrain is at the other side. So think about it. Would you benefit more so from trying to create a narrow pass through that blocking? By all means, then go down by the blocking. If you've got greater mobility or more flyers, the ability to pop up and down onto the elevated, to go for that side of the map. Either side is going to give you plenty of options for throwing your opponent into pits or trying to avoid getting thrown into pits yourself. But please note that this is not like most Heroclix maps, one where the end doesn't matter. Here, the end actually does have some real relevance. Next slide. Finally, we've got narrow passes. So there's a series, if you're not a flyer, there are a bunch of narrow passages that you have to navigate or else risk running through the interdimensional squares and maybe not making it all the way. I've indicated in blue squares places where you could place a character or two, like a Tyrannoid, for example, or some Pogs created by a Rat King or a Devil Dinosaur or something, that block the walking line of fire for any non-flyers. And of course, if you've got plasticity, then it's just going to block everybody. So by all means, the Tyrannoids are a great example. Get them into these narrow little passes, and it's going to be a real bugger trying to get across this map without dealing with those guys, which gives you a element of control. Next slide. So, a few little things we might want to consider for this map. Obviously, flight and improved movement will help a great deal. Knockback effect. Any ability to knock your opponent back into the interdimensional squares will be well worth it. Any kind of placement effects. TK is a great example. And let's not forget our old friend Mind Control. Mind Control can go a long way. You can move your opponent, you can give them some damage, and then you can have them pop out somewhere where they don't want to be. Lots of things you can achieve simultaneously with Mind Control on a map like this, so keep that in mind when you're building your teams. Now I'm going to go into the next slide and talk about a few individual characters you might want to consider. We're going to start with the big elephant in the room, and that's a Merodroid. Now, a Merodroid loves this map because I'm not going to do the whole text here because I don't want to be here all night, but the crux of it is the last little bit. After actions resolve, place the character that you've chosen for your Colossal Retaliation in any square within 6 squares in line of fire of a Merodroid. You don't even have to hit, ladies and gentlemen. All you have to do is trigger Colossal Retaliation, and a Merodroid gets to throw you within 6 squares. Now, this is an outdoor map. A Merodroid's a Colossal. That means he's looking right over all that elevated, right over all that blocking, and is tossing you right into a pit where you don't want to be. In fact, on the entirety of the map, there are only 9 squares that you could be in that a Merodroid can't throw you into a pit. That's it. And they're at the very corners. That's cray-cray. A Merodroid loves this map. However, he's not the only one. Next slide will give you another one, and that is Peace Machine. Now, Peace Machine loves this map for a couple different reasons. First of all, Jay had to remind me of this one. Peace Machine can use Force Blast, and when he does, he can target opposing characters within 3 squares in line of fire. Not only is Force Blast great on a map like this, but Peace Machine makes Force Blast even better. Let's also not forget that he's got Outwit, so he has the ability to take away things like charge or combat reflexes that would prevent people from being knocked back. He's got Telekinesis to throw you into there forcibly if the knockback path wouldn't do it. And finally, his suppression field isn't specifically useful on this map, but it's the one where if a character would take 4 or more damage, it takes 3 instead. Peace Machine is good for the types of teams that do progressive damage over time, and thus he tends to stretch out the game and works better with teams that can do lots of little bits of damage. And one great way of doing that is throwing your opponent into a pit. Let's not forget, next slide, another great one from the past that we might want to consider. We haven't seen so much lately of Red Tornado, but Red Tornado just loves a map like this. Let's not forget the trait. Red Tornado can use Force Blast normally or as a free action. When she activates Force Blast, after action's resolved, the target is still adjacent to her, deal that character 1 penetrating damage. Okay, so Force Blast somebody into the pit. They take damage. If the closest square you could argue as the active character is next to Red Tornado, place them back next to Red Tornado, then deal them another penetrating damage, then take a power action and use Force Blast again and do the whole thing all over again. That's 4 damage in 1 turn if you set it up correctly, and that's amazing. She also, of course, has Outwit to make so that those knockback bits will stick past your charge and your combat reflexes, and she also has Telekinesis, much like Peace Machine. She's a great call for this, and a great little call-in option if you happen to be able to get onto this map. And finally, another blast from the past that no one ever played before, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, next slide. It's Speed Freak. Now, this is one no one really talks about, but I love Speed Freak all the same. First of all, his improved movement ignores elevated terrain. Actually has application here because there's a bunch of elevated on this. And his Adamantium Coil power, he can use Precision Strike, and when he hits an opposing character after action is resolved, you may place that character within 2 squares of Speed Freak. So, use your hypersonic speed, hit somebody, land next to the pit, drop them within 2 squares, and they fall down the pit. Just a nice little bit of extra good times. And because it's within 2 squares, you have the possibility of placing them a little bit farther away and taking advantage of the active player chooses nearest rule to make them fly even farther away. So you can do some extra damage and throw them even farther away from Speed Freak. Or closer if you want. Whatever you want. I just think it's kind of cool. Next slide. There's an example of a team I put together that could take advantage of this map. This is just one of many, but you know, it's a little modern age team. It's not amazing, but we've got the new Thunderball. Thunderball has Outwit, once again, great for taking care of things that would prevent knockback, and of course he comes with the Enchanted Ball of Chain, which gives him Quake, but he deals his full damage rather than 2. So he can use that Quake to knock all kinds of people into pits. You've also got Tyrannus, who is filling the board up with some Moloids. Stingray, rarely spoken of, but it's a scientist-themed team, so you got to get something for 50 points, and why not have something that can carry along your Moloids? 3 Ameridroids, to drop people in, and a boxing ring, along with a Justice League teleporter with a variety of ID cards. Now, next slide. First thing we notice is it is a scientist-themed team. +6 to your map roll, so you're likely going to be able to choose the map you want. Next slide, please. Next thing up, we have Thunderball with Ball and Chain creates and stands in debris, so he can blast through some of that blocking and then stand in it to make him harder to target. Outwit, Charge/Combat reflexes, and with Giant Reach, Super Quake, he's knocking people all over the place, including, hopefully, into the pit. Next slide. Let us not forget, as I said before, the Tyrannoid Swarm with Stingray to carry can clog up the map and encourage people to make attacks, turning your teleporter and activating your Mirror Droids. And finally... something else. Several characters on this team can activate ID cards to help move the teleporter along. That's not related specifically to the map, but with a good card selection, any 3 of those guys can be calling in people. So that's just one example. Next slide and final slide. In conclusion. Now, in conclusion, this is a great little map. It's well worth considering if you have a team that has the ability to knock people around. If you can knock people through the blocking, so much better if you've got a lot of TK. And in general, I think it's a good one to bring along because your opponent will often not see it coming. And this is a great one in a world where Unum Mind is one of many different characters that have stop clicks, and the opportunity to deal damage and knock somebody into a pit to then knock them off their stop click could be real good. I also wonder about the sequence of events if you're the active player for dropping them outside. If you happen to kill Unimind by falling into a pit, could you argue that all the Eternals should also appear inside the pit? I don't know. I'm overthinking it now. But the point is, it's real good. And that's it for that map.
Awesome. Well, that's the Bifrost. You had the other one set up too if you want to...
I do. I have Jotunheim as well. This one is what I call a mini Cartographer's Corner because I didn't go into quite as much detail.
Now, before we get into it, let's kind of, I guess, let Jay, do you have any thoughts in regards to Bifrost as far as what Tom has said while I make sure I didn't break anything by dropping my phone?
It's definitely worth considering if, I guess, practically speaking, for your team, or at least the version that had a marriage droid on it, because you had Pogs. You wanted them to be hit. You had a Mirror Droid. You had a lot of the stuff going on there. So just practical things.
It's not a coincidence. That's what gave me the idea for the Cartographer's Corner in the first place.
Other than that, I'm very impressed that Tom managed to throw in mentions of Speed Freak and Tyrannus in the same little bit. I applaud you for that.
Gotta dig deep sometimes.
Leave it to the Hulk fan, eh?
Oh,
I'm so happy that we made Tyrannus. I haven't been on the show to gush over him, but I think that he's an absolutely wonderful piece. I mean, maybe not a top-tier piece, but I certainly think that he has some second-tier potential. I look forward to seeing how he can be used.
His inclusion on some of the teams that do exist right now is possibly warranted. And I know there's a lot of love right now for the symbiotes for their I believe they came with plasticity and blades and shape change and whatever. Yep. So they're easier to produce when it comes to Tyrannus because it's you start with 2, then you take power action, make 1, power action, make another one. Oh look, I've got 2 action tokens, I'm gonna make another one.
He floods the board, and he can crank them up. They can move better. I really think that he's cool, and he's got a deep dial for 65 points. He's 7 clicks deep, and with regen, they can't fail. It's real good.
Apparently, everybody has decided to put everything near my desk right now, so I apologize for all that noise. Sorry.
I realized, on top of all that, he also gets late dial mind control, so he can also make the team work by just mind controlling your opponent, just moving those squares.
I tell you,
I played
it's great.
In the sealed for this set. I played against Enchantress, who was the worst, absolute worst figure because of this.
Into the pit with you.
Hey, you want to just walk into a pit? Okay, thanks.
I really look forward to. I think I'm going to add Bifrost to my team selection. I'm not going to lie. I got a lot of ways to use it.
I think you should, and I've always been a big fan of when it comes to choosing map selection, if you don't have anything else, choose the one map that is the best possible thing for your team. Choose one map that is the best possible counter for the thing that works best against your team, and then you've got a third, which is kind of utility. And I think Bifrost is an outstanding utility slot one, because if you've got at least some degree of good access to TK, mind control, knockback powers, etc., and you're up against an opponent who doesn't have any at all, well, why the heck not?
Yeah.
I wonder, since we have the 300 Rock Age Super Q. I wonder how common Brother Voodoo is going to be, and he can also work frustratingly well with this.
Oh yeah, that would be really annoying.
Oh.
I also love, and as I said before when I was talking about it, I love the fact that it's clear terrain. So Mind Control doesn't just allow you to walk into a pit and take damage. You can walk all the way to the other side of the pit, fall, take damage, and then appear on the other side of the wall. He can basically send you back to your starting zone and damage you along the way.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's so amazing. All right, now we're all set up for the next Cartographer's Corner. We got a mini one set up for Jotunheim Lake, which I'm a big fan of myself, too. And there seems to be a theme between these two maps involving the word knockback.
Yes. I'll be honest with you. I had less to say about this map, but, you know, I still think it's cool. So, here we are in the Cartographer's Corner for Jotunheim Lake. First look. Well, there it is. It looks weird when you look at it this way because it looks like lava, but it's actually a giant lake of ice. And that is all special terrain. All that lower terrain around the border of elevated is all special. And what is that special terrain? Well, the next slide will tell us that special terrain is frozen ice squares. They are clear terrain. When a character occupying an ice square would be knocked back, double the amount of knockback that it is knocked back. Well, that's not what it says. They worded it better. I'm speaking off the cuff. So, evident. But the first point, next slide, is
Knockback reigns supreme.
correct. So, if you can knock people back, you can knock them back even more. That's pretty obvious, and of course what really makes that work so well is, as the next slide says, all knockback paths lead to a splat. There's pretty much, it is possible to get knocked back at such an angle that you may not run into something, but it's fair to say that if you go far enough, you eventually will. And since knockback already tends to knock you back several squares, and now it's being doubled, you will almost always run into a wall or run into higher elevation. Either way, knockback sends your opponent careening away and very likely will hurt them. That's really all I have to say about the special rules, but it's pretty good. However, that's not the only point of interest, as you will see in the next slide. Another point of interest is narrow passes. I've identified a few of them on this map, but frankly, the blocking terrain is laid out in such a way that any placement of a character in any pass will prevent another character from getting through. This is another one of these where if you can kind of simulate the Charlie Brown Christmas by having kids all over the ice, it'll be real difficult to get by them as they're all dancing and stuff. And so another one of these maps where if you can produce a bunch of swarmy things, whether you're Devil Dinosaur, Tyrannus, Pizza Face, I don't know, other things that create pogs, pogs can clog up the pond and make it real hard to get by. I like the Tyrannoids personally. But again, it's narrow passages mean that when it comes to getting around down on the ice, as much as knocking people around is fun, it's often going to be hard to get into the position you want. So it's a great map for clogging up. However, you got to be a little careful about that because, next slide, again, I only indicated a few, but like shooting fish in a barrel. Because of the way in which the elevated is laid out on this map, it's not a consistent ring that is equal width, but it gives you some different angles you can pull off because of the way it's sort of built on diagonals and jagged edges. Then it's very hard to find a square that you can't be seen at all from on high. Maybe you're out of range of one or the other, but you can draw a line of fire to almost every square on the ice. So if you've got some real deep range shooters, then this map is, you might think, oh, I'll just be able to hide behind blocking, but it's not that easy. Deep range shooters that can't move might have a hard time, but deep range running shot pieces, like Unum Mind, for example, will often be able to find their mark in just the right spot to be able to shoot you. It's deceptive. It's deceptive how easily someone can find the right position to be able to shoot you on a map like this if they happen to fly and have decent range. Next slide. So we've talked a little bit about the things to consider for this map. Now let's talk about the powers and effects that might be useful. Well, knockback and ignore knockback. This is especially useful as compared to the Bifrost, where you're always trying to hope to get into the position to knock your opponent into the into the pit, and thus you're likely safe from being knocked into the pit yourself at that point. Knockback goes in all directions here, so ideally you want characters that can both knock back and resist themselves. So take out your charge, take out your combat reflexes, and match them up with your force blasts, your super strengths, etc., quakes, and try to make them work together. Size manipulation and deep range is a great one on a map like this, where you can stand just back from the edge of elevated, turn somebody into a great big figure, say have a Mixie standing next to someone with a deep range, like Unum Mind, and then they can become giant, shoot anywhere on the map, and then make them smaller again so they can't be shot back at. Maybe not the same turn, but you know what I mean. Size manipulation, deep range works together, as does flight with running shot and hypersonic speed. Like I said, lines of fire are easier to find than you might think, because each of those little blocking bits is smaller than they seem to be, and thus flight with running shot and HSS will often get you into the position you want. And finally, ignore/destroys blocking is great on a map like this, because then you don't have to worry about getting caught in those narrow passes by people. You can just run right on through the blocking. That's also, I should probably have pointed out, the only way that you're going to create hindering on this terrain at all. Otherwise, this map has no hindering. So it's great as an anti-stealth map, at least until your opponent starts blowing up some of that blocking. Next slide. Characters to consider. Well, I've already mentioned two of them, so I'm not going to go into detail. Red Tornado and Peace Machine, for all the same reasons, love a map like this, knocking people back, outwitting their combat reflexes, their charge, etc., blasting them all over the place, and enjoying the sheer fun of watching them run into a wall. However, there's another piece that you might consider on the next slide, and that is the newly released Maestro. Now, the Maestro has the ability to run through blocking terrain. So, again, he's not going to get hung up by people standing in his way. He'll just run through the blocking terrain that's next to them. And if you're playing him at either of his two higher point lines, he does have Charge, Flurry, Force Blast. And if Maestro knocks back, if a character Maestro knocks back is stopped by a square of blocking terrain, destroy that terrain, then place the character in that square and deal them 1 penetrating damage. So this is great. If you can happen to get somebody caught between the Maestro and a blocking square, then by all means, blast them into that blocking square and deal some penetrating damage to them, and set them up to next turn, go ahead, charge, blast them into some more. It's just great. It's great fun. And of course, finally, we can't talk about knockback without talking about our old friend Frogman. Frogman loves the ice. Frogman isn't dealt knockback damage, so right off the bat, Frogman wins. And then we have give Frogman a free action to knock himself back 4 squares in a horizontal or vertical direction. After actions resolve, if this knockback was stopped by a character, Frogman knocks that character back 2 squares. And that becomes 4 squares. And also, let's not forget that when he knocks back an opposing character and they're KO'd by the knockback damage, after actions resolve, give an action token to all the opposing characters within 4 squares and of the square where the KO'd character last occupied. So this is, again, a double whammy, because not only are you more likely to be able to knock somebody back and kill them with it, but they're going to go even farther, ideally back to the rest of their team, who are all going to stand and look in astonishment, taking action tokens, while Frogman continues to bounce around in absolute safety from the knockback damage caused by the lake. Gotta love Frogman. Next up, I have a team to consider. This time I decided to build a 400-point limited team. This is the other one for this weekend, so it seemed like fun. I started out with a Hulk. This one is the SR Hulk from the Mighty Thor set. He has charge and, of course, super strength, so he'll be knocking people around, and he can blast through blocking when he charges. I also put Speed Freak on this team because I like the idea of getting somebody into just the right position. We have an Iron Rick, not seen very often, but Iron Rick has a full dial of Force Blast and deals and his knockback damage is penetrating, so he's great on a map like this. 50-point Iron Man from the What If Fast Forces is a hypersonic speedster that can blast people. Peace Machine for all the reasons we've already talked about. And let's not forget our old friend Stiltman, the only Colossal Retaliator that we have in Limited, who has enough leg extensions to turn himself into a Colossal, and he also has a lot of Force Blast so that he can Colossal Retaliate, knock you around, and his Force Blast will knock you back, ideally into a wall. I've tossed on a sword, a knobbed mace, and a mace. The mace causes knockback. The sword is good for making the Peace Machine do some damage, and the knobbed mace is kind of fun, I guess. I had points. So a few points on this one. I think I only have one more slide on this one where I put all my points down because I was pressed for time. But yes, indeed. It's a scientist theme, so +6 for map roll. Speed Freak helps optimize position. Peace Machine outwits powers that prevent knockback. Iron Man uses HSS for hit and runs. Hulk smashes on through the blocking, knocking people around. Iron Rick knocks people around with penetrating damage, and Stiltman waits to use his Colossal Retaliation for yet more knockback. And so, final slide, we have our concluding thoughts. Yep, all we've pretty much talked about with this map is knockback. I'm almost, the word is becoming desensitized for me because of the fact that I've used it so many times, but let's be honest, that's what this is all about. And this one is a little bit more situational. You kind of have to design a team that's optimized for it, but if you can, I feel like there's potential here, and gosh darn is it ever a fun map to play on. So that is Cartographer's Corner for this week. Thank you all for paying attention.
One thing worth noting too, and you did this in with another map. I can't remember what it was, but if you happen to put a Colossal on the Bifrost, you know what that map looks like? All white.
That's true.
Like nothing blocks a Colossal because it's an outdoor map, if I remember correctly.
You bet.
Yeah, and Colossals don't care about outdoor blocking terrain. It's pretty insane how much you get out of that.
You.
All right. All right. Yeah, I guess that kind of wraps up. We bothered with questions while you're kind of interneting out, Tom. But if there's anything else you want to add before we.
Oh no, I'm good to go. I thank you. I'm sorry for all the internet problems, and I appreciate everyone who is listening that has stuck with it thus far. I'm happy that I was able to get back on and do the Cartographer's Corner thing. And let's be honest, this is the most exciting week of Heroclix, or if it's not, then it's the second most. You can argue about which one's which. But hey, one of our 2 big world championships is coming up, and it's an exciting time to be a Heroclix player. So for everyone who's going to be attending ROCtober, I look forward to seeing you there. I look forward to playing against you, or at least hearing how your games are going, meeting people, and having a generally good time. And for everybody else, it's an exciting time to be a Heroclix player. Keep your eyes open for new stuff from all the sites that are producing content, because there's going to be a lot of it. And keep your eyes open for seeing this weekend how the best players in the world, and us 3 schlubs, do at ROCtober.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to seeing everybody at ROCtober, and just try to I'm going to try to make sure I signal it very carefully, but if it looks like I'm in the middle of commentary, try not to get into the middle of things, as I don't want to try to seem rude, but I will be trying to focus on the commentary of the match. I'll try to put up a flag or some kind of, hey, we're in the middle of commentary piece of paper so that people know what's going on. Yeah, by all means, feel free to chit-chat, hang out with me, whatever. And I look forward to seeing as many people as I usually do down there. And, I apologize if you see me in the evening because I'm going to probably be a hot mess. Okay. Anything you want to say leading into ROCtober?
It's going to be good. It's going to be fun. Fun, good. Good fun.
All right. Awesome. On that note, it's time to thank the people who give us money. And one of those people happens to be hcrealms.com. Check them out. They're the one-stop shop for all sorts of things Heroclix related. Check out the forums. This is where the conversation is happening. Check the units section. It's where your teams are being built. This is that wackiness I started building last week with the Super Police, the Gunfighter, and the Superman. I was just picking figures. I'm not going to lie. But they do try to keep up to date. They've already got the Heimdall, Valkyrie, and Loki from the Ragnarok set up on there. Ape Green Lantern, Ape Batman are up there. The Titano dial is up there. Check it out. Keep track of your collection. Build your teams. It's a really useful tool. It is the useful tool when it comes down to Heroclix, collecting, and building team building. Check out the Rock tab. Find out what's coming up in the Rocks, like, I don't know, the Rock World Cup. As I click there, and there it is. Find out results from other Rocks, including the U.S. Championships, the Brazil National Championships, and I'm sure the Canada Cup will show up there sometime. iTrader chat, all kinds of neat stuff going on, and check out the shop. While you're in the shop, put in the coupon code Marriott for 10% off your purchase, and a little bit goes back to help the channel out. As well, check us out. Check out majesticccg.com/apex-insiders. This is the brain dump for all sorts of great HeroClix players. I can't stress enough. This is the week to watch it. We're already looking at 2 majorly important articles. We've got the competitive alternatives to Keen Thunder and Unum Mind from Adam Friedman, and that is a brain to watch. We got the Clicks of the Week from Diego Pinto de Luz, the Brazilian world champion or Brazilian national champion from previous years. I think this year was Pedro Roca. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm a terrible human being. We also have the Learning Curve from Paris Gordon. choosing to use Jakeem and Unum Mind strategies. So this is a brain dump of the greatest in the game. MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders for $3 a month. You get the brain drippings of some of the greats in the game. Of course, if you don't have a subscription, check it out directly at MajesticCCG.com. You get access to some free articles as well, which will include things like articles written by myself where I just kind of philosophize, as it were. You get the rules corner from Amber. You get Jay's regular brain drippings. That's not a bad thing. Brain drippings are a good thing from smart people. Oh, and we got Tom's beautiful face. I hope Tom got that text message that I sent to him. Oh, and I lost Tom's beautiful face and his wonderful bottle. Wait, there it is again. He's coming in and out. All right, guys. This is the week. Get those games in. Get those practice games in. Get all kinds of research and brain integration and get some practice with whatever you're playing on building, guys. This is the week to do it. ROCtober is coming up starting on Friday or even on Thursday if you're down there and you're checking out the Critical Clicks tournament. There's going to be a lot of great minds playing the game. There's going to be a lot of great people playing the game. And it's Heroclix. We all love this game. We're all going to be friendly. We're all going to be awesome. But we're all going to come in with a lot of practice because we need our teams better because practice
makes
your
team
better.
Have a good night, everybody. See you guys at ROCtober.
See you there.